So, where does all this start? And it starts in different places with different people at different times. But one of the beautiful things that we see around the world right now is cities deciding to embark on this journey of compassion, kindness, hospitality, love. Because in these times that we're living in, it's like, what's resonating with everybody? What comes from the heart? And how do we have that type of conversation in our cities where people don't look at us a little bit funny, but they say, you're onto something there. And that happened here in our city by engendering who we are already. You heard that from Mayor Price, that you just can't proclaim you're a compassionate city, and then all of a sudden everybody says, oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, now we're going to do that. It's the authenticity of your place and your history. And we started emphasizing this. I became mayor a little over 6.5 years ago, and in my inaugural address, I wanted to communicate to the people of Louisville how we would be making our decisions and what would be the filter for making our decisions, the values that would guide the city. And I said our three key values will be lifelong learning, health in all aspects, and then compassion. And the first two, people were nodding their heads. The third, when I said compassion, people looked at me like, really? Compassion? Isn't that a little weird? It seems like it's soft. And I said, well, and my reflection is it's much more difficult for people to be compassionate and lift each other up than it is to be a critic from the couch or cynical or what have you. So I said, no, this will be hard work that we're going to do here. So carrying on from that, we've really seen tremendous momentum. And when you think back to the roots of the history of our country, what's it about? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of
happiness.
Well, there's not a lot of people when the Constitution, when all those founding documents came together, there was not universal happiness in our country, for sure. We had the stain of slavery in our country. If you were a white male, believed in a patriarchal society, it was like kind of all good for my demographic, with apologies. But my point is, we're very much a work in progress. So it's really important that leaders, such as you all here today, elected leaders, speak to these human values of kindness, compassion, love that I believe we are all born with, and encourage people to spring forth with the expression of those values in their daily life. I think that's a fundamental responsibility that we have. When people think about mayors in particular, and they think about our municipal obligations of running cities and public safety and recycling or whatever it might be, yeah, that's the daily work of our job. But the breakthroughs that we can have in cities are when we recognize that interdependence and that interconnections that we all have, especially across different parts of town or across different religions, where we realize that we're really not that different, that we're all in this together for security, for economic opportunity, whatever it might be. So the embracing what we all have in common as the vehicle then for our cities to express that potential collectively, and for us to express that human potential individually, I think happens through these universal human values. We've taken this notion of compassion and maybe have been a little liberal, Karen, with its definition. We say that compassion means that we respect each and every one of their citizens so that their human potential is flourishing, thriving. Thomas Merton would say, shining like the sun, right? Like our theme here for the festival. So compassion is an action word. Empathy is a doorway. It's a gateway to compassion. Compassion connotes things that we're doing in our city. So how do you bring it to life? Because I haven't found anybody that said, well, I think compassion's a bad thing, or compassion's a political thing. No, everybody kind of agrees with that. And when you think about the unification of 5/6 or so of Americans through a common purpose of going to a house of worship, compassion is central to all the good books, all the great religious books of our day. So it's provided a nice platform actually to challenge each of us to bring compassion to life. So we signed the Charter for Compassion on November 11, 2011 as a symbol, as a commitment. It was a unanimous vote by our Metro Council as well, which I was very happy with. There really was no controversy around it, but it was a statement early on that we're going to pursue this notion of making a more perfect city. It says we pursue making our country a more perfect union at the same time. And so the work that has developed around this, as we've been into this now over 5 years, is much bigger than my office as mayor. There's all types of things that are happening in our community at all different points, from service work. This is the Give a Day week of service in our community right now. Last year we had 175,000 volunteers in acts of compassion during that week. I anticipate we will probably have more than that this year, of all walks of life coming together. And this is one of the most beautiful weeks in our city because I have the opportunity, and Betsy mentioned this as well with your experience of, like at 1 o'clock today, I'm going to be at the Volunteers of America and some work that they're doing. Then I'm going to Father Maloney's Boys and Girls Haven after that. And you just run into people that have signed up for these projects on the web because they're just there to help. And the same thing has happened to me when I say, why are you here? They say, I always wanted to volunteer, but I didn't know how to do it. Yeah. And I'm going to stay and I'm going to help this organization from here on. So it starts expanding the culture of compassion and caring across all parts of our city. So service is probably the easiest way to bring compassion alive in your city, but then how do you start making it and embedding it in different aspects of your community? Through education. Our Compassionate Schools project, which Owsley Brown is one of our founding lights on that. K-5, teaching kids compassion and empathy. You might say, if you're here, well, doesn't everybody know how to do that? The sad reality is, in America today, that there are way too many of our 6-year-olds showing up at kindergarten 3 years behind their advantaged peers. Kids that come from areas of any of our communities that have access, that have all the advantages. Our disadvantaged kids, in effect, are showing up having lived in a post-traumatic stress environment. Think about that. They're housing insecure. They're food insecure. They've probably experienced or been around violence, as opposed to what's supposed to happen in those early years of being loved, of being caressed, of being read to, of being paid attention to, so your cognitive development will occur like what happens again for advantaged kids. So the Compassionate Schools project takes those challenges head on at the earliest, most formative years and integrates nutrition, wellness, mindfulness into the curriculum. And you can see a transformation that takes place in a school from when you go during that first week of an elementary school and all of the energy that's taking place in a school and all the kids bouncing off the wall and bouncing off of each other. Many not knowing how to behave, actually. Before, those kids would have gotten in trouble. They would have been put in a corner. They would have been labeled as a persistent offender in kindergarten and gone down a bad path. The Compassionate Schools project teaches the kids individually how to calm down, how to be mindful, and then how to have empathy, a new concept for a lot of young folks. And then when you go back into the schools 3 months later, you can feel a calmness and serenity over these elementary schools, relative to what an elementary school can be in calmness and serenity. And the teachers, the self-help that they're getting from the Compassionate Schools project is also evident. I bring this up in that we have to have methods and processes to integrate compassion so that we can teach people new skills for living. On the other side of the education spectrum, the University of Louisville School of Medicine is teaching medical students about compassion and mindfulness. Dr. Barry Curzon, who is one of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's personal physicians, kicked this program off with the white coat ceremony just this past U of L class, to where, which in today's generation you can imagine is responding extraordinarily well to this message of compassion and mindfulness, not just for patients to take care of them, but also for themselves to slow down and realize that if I don't have self-compassion, if I'm not taking care of myself, if I don't have self-worth and projecting that to my patients, how can I expect them to be healthy? So my point is when we think about our cities, how are we bringing compassion to life on a day in and day out basis? We're so lucky to have the Drepung Gomong Center for Engaging Compassion in our city as well. I don't know if Geshe-la is here or not, but it's been a tremendous leader for compassion just by showing up in our community. You can do it through restorative justice. We do it through our kids with our We Day celebration that we had yesterday. That's all focused on service and helping others. The reason why we exist is we're born to make the world a better place. We are born to renew ourselves. We are born to grow. We see that in the cycle of nature. Compassion allows that to do that with ourselves as well. I think that we are on the verge of a new social contract in this country. When you look at the challenges that we have between those that have it and those that don't have it, when you take a look at the 24/7 real-time witnessing that people can do, what people feel is if they don't have it, they feel like, shouldn't I have that? Shouldn't I have the advantages that other people have? And shouldn't I have the opportunity to express my human potential? And so in our country in particular, I think that is leading to more and more people questioning what kind of skills do I need? Are those skills available to me so I can be a relevant part of a 21st century economy? Shouldn't every one of our citizens have access to healthy food? Shouldn't every one of our citizens have access to affordable housing? It goes on and on through this, so that the only way for us to optimize our collective potential as a country, which is the beauty of our diversity and skill, is for us to look at each other as if we are shining like the sun and realize it's not a Darwinian contest of who wins or who loses. It's how we advance toward a more perfect union together. And compassion, I believe, is the antidote. If we have that respect toward each other, and we know part of our job is to make their human potential flourish, that moves our country forward, and it certainly moves our cities forward. Our cities are the perfect unit for this change. Mayors have got to take care of business. We don't have the advantage of hiding in a state capital or a federal capital.
That's true.
So it's a little messy sometimes, but it's also the beauty, because it's kind of in that daily collision where you really see the human experience. That's the reality of it. And of course, this is a very real situation we're living in. We're blessed to be able to be in here today in this nice place, but there's a lot of people that are struggling today. And our job, I believe, is to help make this a more perfect city for each one of those. And through compassion, through events like the festival, I'm convinced we'll do that. Through these great mayors that are here today. You all should be heartened. There's a lot of mayors that are out getting after this work. Just like when we talked about this in the city, as we've talked about it at our United States Conference of Mayors, which we all belong to. Last June, the Dalai Lama came to our annual meeting to talk about his optimism that compassion can run through our cities so that we can heal our cities and heal our country and be a beacon for the rest of the world. So thank you all very much for being here today. I appreciate the opportunity. God bless you.
Mayor, I think it's only fair to give you a name. That I think you have a passion for compassion.
Well, thank you.
And for that, we are grateful.